It wasn't brought up. It wasn't discussed. But he did bring down the tariff set on China because of the fentanyl issue. He did bring that down by half, from 20% to 10%, rewarding China for doing absolutely nothing.
I thought it was an amazing meeting. He's a great leader of a very powerful, very strong country, China. And what can I say? We have, it was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made, too. There wasn't too much left out there. And we've come to conclusion on many very important points, and we'll be handing that to you in a little while. We're in agreement on so many elements, large amounts, tremendous amounts of the soybeans and other farm products are going to be purchased immediately, starting immediately.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Dollemore Daily. I'm Boston Brian, filling in for Jesse as he makes his way back to the United States after his recent trip to Japan. And what you just heard was Donald Trump speaking about his recent meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, the guy that he was forced to go and kiss the ring, forced to go and shake his hand and beg and plead with this guy to please buy more soybeans from the United States so more farmers don't lose their livelihoods. This after what we saw in the first administration, where Donald Trump again tried to come up with some deal with China to save our farmers, and we know how that ended up going. It ended up costing the U.S. taxpayers billions after they had to bail out the farmers. But this is, along those lines, very similar thing of Donald Trump using his Asia trip to again buddy up to these dictators, these authoritarian people that he so loves, that he so admires. And this trip was no different. This meeting was absolutely no different. I mean, we've seen just recently, and you heard him talk a little bit, and we'll have a few more clips coming up where he speaks about it as well, where he talks about, fentanyl. And as we all know, the vast majority of the fentanyl that comes into the United States comes from Mexico or China, right? So I haven't seen Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth or the Department of War take out any Chinese cargo ships, right? But I have seen them take out several 20-foot fishing boats with, 50 horsepower outboard engines on them that would need more fuel than the boat could carry in order to get to the United States with its cargo, if that was his mission anyways. But we've killed around 60 people, somehow claiming that, the cocaine is worse than the fentanyl that he was talking about as being the deadliest thing we've seen in a long time. None of it really makes any sense. But that kind of leads us to, some of the things that were discussed or not discussed in this meeting. One of the biggest talking points, one of the biggest sticking points between the United States, China, and, the rest of the world is their threats, their aggression towards Taiwan, especially since we have U.S. military members stationed in Taiwan. But somehow the most important thing, the thing that could be the most dangerous point in the relationship between China, between the United States, between Trump and Xi Jinping, was not discussed.
I think we agreed to almost everything in a very acceptable form. I wouldn't say everything was discussed, because there were things that probably, in retrospect, we could have discussed and we didn't, for some reason, didn't come up.
He was asked point blank, Donald Trump asked point blank here by the reporter, if Taiwan came up, what was discussed, after Donald Trump talked about, how many things were finalized and nothing was left on the table. Well, apparently the biggest problem that we face, the biggest issue that we have right now, especially as it pertains to, world security, and at least the security of our military members and our allies, right, is the Taiwan issue. And again, here's Donald Trump out of his own mouth telling you that he doesn't give a shit about that. It wasn't brought up. It wasn't discussed. But he did bring down the tariff set on China because of the fentanyl issue. He did bring that down by half, from 20% to 10%, rewarding China for doing absolutely nothing. So again, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, all they have to do is show up to these meetings, shake hands, smile for the cameras. They know they won't be forced to answer any hard questions from the media, and they're going to receive everything that they want without having to put anything back on the table in return. So again, here's Donald Trump out of his own mouth telling you that Taiwan was just never discussed.
What about the Taiwan issue, sir?
It never came up. Taiwan never came up. It was not discussed, actually.
What else didn't come up that you thought might come up? You had mentioned you didn't get to everything.
We had a long meeting, as you know, but a lot of things we discussed in great detail. A lot of things we brought to finalization. A lot of finalization.
A lot of finalization, he says, whatever the hell that means. And apparently no finalization to, again, the biggest question in the security in that area, and, the aggression that China's shown towards Taiwan, and, the buildup of their military forces and the buildup of their navy and the threats against, Taiwan and the United States. And again, the missile launch drills, the military exercises performed in trying to intimidate Taiwan and the United States. Again, all of that put into perspective, and Donald Trump again just wants to shake hands and tell you how strong a leader Xi Jinping is and how beautifully run his country is. It's embarrassing, to say the very least. It's embarrassing. The world sees it. Everybody sees it for what it is. And again, these people laugh at Donald Trump. They laugh at the United States consistently as soon as this guy leaves the room. And again, we keep talking about the fentanyl issue and how differently Donald Trump is treating China and Xi Jinping compared to the way he's treating Venezuela and Maduro, and the action we've seen taken with the Venezuelan fishing boats, both in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. And now look at the way he's talking and treating Xi Jinping here, bringing up the fentanyl issue, trying to give Xi Jinping credit for doing some, fantasy work and stopping the fentanyl trade and stopping the fentanyl from getting to Mexico and then inevitably getting to the United States. Again, talking about bringing the tariff that he set on China for this exact purpose down by half after seeing absolutely nothing in return, just hearing words from Xi Jinping, hearing empty promises from Xi Jinping, and again, rewarding the dictator, rewarding the authoritarian that he so friggin' loves. And here he is out of his own mouth telling you that, Xi Jinping promised to do something about the fentanyl, which is why I took down the tariff by half. Check it out. Tell me what you think.
On fentanyl, we agreed that he was going to work very hard to stop the flow. It's a very complex subject because it's used for lots of different reasons, including anesthetics and things. But he's going to work very hard on it, precursors, and I think you're going to see some real action taken. I've agreed, as you know, I put a 20% tariff on China because of the fentanyl coming in, which is it's a big tariff. And based on his statements today, I reduced it by 10%, so it's 10% instead of 20%.
Based on his statements today, I've reduced it by 10%. So based solely off of the empty promises of a murderous authoritarian dictator ruling over what he calls a communist country, but is really just a terror state, using cameras and AI to rule over its own citizenry. I mean, taking this guy's word for it, I'm not even sure what the correct metaphor, what the correct thing to say in this instance is, but it's fucking ridiculous, okay? It's absolutely asinine, especially when he's treating people like Volodymyr Zelensky, one of our allies, as aggressively and as disrespectfully as he treats him. You can see how he favors and differs between, people that are supposed to be our allies and then others that are, enemies, dictators, authoritarians that he cuddles up to. And speaking of Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, and remembering that we just heard a clip talking about how Donald Trump and Xi Jinping did not speak about the Taiwan issue, this clip it's even crazier to me, because here's Donald Trump talking about how they spoke at length about the Russia-Ukraine problem, and they didn't bring up at all any problems related to China and Taiwan. Check it out.
Probably to Ukraine for the most part. And we discussed it. We discussed all that. We're going to work together to try and get the war with Russia and Ukraine solved.
Now, I'm not quite sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but is that the same war that you promised that you would end within 24 hours of being elected? Not inaugurated, elected, and along those lines of wars that he's unable to end. Here he is questioned by a reporter about the recent Israeli strikes into Gaza, the non-existent, ridiculous-sounding, any mainstream media person that calls it still to this day a ceasefire is doing a complete injustice to the term. It's disrespectful, and it's just completely living in an alternate universe, an alternate reality to even refer to this as a ceasefire anymore, considering the 100+ people that have died intensified in recent days, and again strikes and retaliations. Again, tacit permission given to Israel by Donald Trump to continuously retaliate in egregious ways to what they deem as violations to the ceasefire. But here he is again being asked if he was told prior to the Israeli strikes into Gaza about this going on, and then you'll hear his response here, and then tell me if you still think, again, people lobbing missiles, people shooting and killing people is in any way equated to a ceasefire, which means you cease firing. Don't fire, don't kill. Words have meanings, and we need to get back to those meanings. But check it out. Here he is from the moron's mouth himself.
Did Israel give you a heads up before they bombed Gaza? And is it still a ceasefire if they're stopping?
It is. No, they had a sniper, and one of their soldiers were killed, and they did retribution. So we'll see. But it is a ceasefire. It's back to ceasefire.
And finally, from this moronic interview, wrapping up this embarrassing trip that he's been on, is Donald Trump being questioned about his recent Truth Social post about the United States restarting our nuclear testing. Again, this is the so-called president of peace actively talking about restarting our nuclear testing. Apparently, he's a little jealous of both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping's ability to just launch nuclear missiles up wherever and whenever they want. And Donald Trump wants to get in on the action. And here he is questioned in this embarrassing press conference about that Truth Social post.
Why did you write your Truth Social about nuclear testing? What about resuming nuclear testing? What prompted you to do that right before the meeting?
It had to do with others. They seem to all be nuclear testing.
Russia?
We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Any details around the testing, sir? Like where, when?
It'll be announced. We have test sites. It'll be announced.
So he's desperate to launch nuclear missiles. He's killed over 60 innocent Venezuelans, Colombians, Ecuadorians, fishermen, and fishing boats with outboard engines, right? At the same time, he's actively trying to go to war with the cartels. At the same time, he's actively trying to remove Nicolas Maduro from power as he's actively trying to seize the Venezuelan oil. All of this from the so-called president of peace. And I'm sure there's much more added to that list that I probably missed out on. And I'm sure you can leave it in the chat for me. Leave it all in the comments on anything that I have missed out on ways and examples at how this guy is anything but the president of peace, anything but the America First president that he claims to be. But I really do appreciate you guys for joining me on this ride. Again, I'm Boston Brian, filling in for Jesse as he returns home from Japan. If you guys like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, please like the videos. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And please give me a shot over on my channel, Boston Brian. I host a little show called Blunt Politics. Check it out. Give me a shot. If, again, you like what you're hearing over there, if you like what you're seeing, give me a subscription, shoot me a follow, hit me on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. You can find me at Boston Brian pretty much anywhere. But thank you guys so much again for your patience. Thank you so much in bearing with me as I fill in here for Jesse. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, I'm Boston Brian. Stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive, keep kicking ass, find your nearest protest, find your nearest rally, get out of your seats, get into the streets, but make sure you got your head on a swivel out there. Make sure you're staying safe. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Again, I'm Boston Brian, host of Blunt Politics, filling in here for Jesse. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching the Dollemore Daily. Have a great day, guys.